The Persian Empire, known for its stunning architecture and tapestries, was the richest and most powerful empire to rule over the ancient world. The Persian Empire rose and fell with its many dynasties, but it was first created under the reign of the Achaemenids. Under these kings, the Persian Empire grew to span over 2 million square miles and was inhabited by over 10 million people. The Persian Empire began as small clusters of nomadic tribes scattered throughout the deserts of the Middle East. These people were united under one man, Cyrus the Great. Cyrus not only forged the Persian Empire, but in his leisure time, he enjoyed the pleasures of gardens. Cyrus's designs for these parks was different than the normal layout of those at that time. Many modern gardens and parks are modeled after Cyrus's revolutionary ways.
The royal garden, which was definitely an Achaemenid concept, brought into even modern day today in Iran, which are gardens with 4 porticos. Each of the porticos have 3 walls and an open space that faces the garden. So you see a lot of influence from Achaemenid times, not only to their neighbors, but also in their modern day today in Iran.
He placed the flowers in geometric and colorful patterns, and covered his parks with wide walkways, fountains, and canals. His canals were used by his successors, for example, Darius I, when building Persepolis.
Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents them from accomplishing the task proposed to them with the very utmost speed.
A quote by Herodotus, a famous Greek historian describing the efficiency of the Persian postal system. The postal system traveled along the royal roads of the empire, beginning at Sardes and stretching as far as the city Persepolis. The roads were approximately 1,700 miles long and were paved with cobblestones along the entire length. Major cities sprouted and prospered along the royal roads due to increase in trade. The roads were most often used by messengers on horseback called piradazis. They could travel along the entire length of the road in only 7 days. Achaemenid art and architecture was greatly valued all over the ancient world. Cyrus was an individual leader who melded together the cultures he conquered and therefore made a greater society.
Cyrus the Great began this fusion of art from around the ancient world in his Pasargadae day. But it's fair to say that Darius the Great was probably the true inventor of what became known as the Achaemenid architecture and art.
Every single one of these accomplishments were revolutionary, but one was to outdo the rest. Persepolis. Persepolis was created by Darius I in 521 BC. The most famous quote about Persepolis was by Diodorus, a Greek historian who stated that it was the wealthiest city under the sun. Representatives from 28 nations came to Persepolis to talk with the Achaemenid king. But it was not created for religious or strategic purposes. In fact, it was primarily created to exhibit the wealth of the empire. The gloss of the stone surfaces were the symbol of purity of the hearts and minds of the creators of Persepolis, and the huge volumes of stone put together exactly were meant to give the visitor a sense of perfection and awe. The treasury in Persepolis was a complex system of halls covering 10,000 square meters and had 199 columns, but even this enormous structure proved to be too small to hold the growing wealth of the Achaemenid kings. The most magnificent pieces of art were therefore displayed in the throne room. Cyrus the Great started the tradition that forbade slave labor and gave equal rights to all his subjects. He is famous for his cylinder, which dictated how he treated the conquered Babylonians humanely. Darius continued his predecessor's approach to life and built Persepolis using a method unlike any at that time.
We know from tablets that have been discovered on site at Persepolis that they were not forced laborers, they were not slaves, they were indeed paid workers. And the paid workers were practically 50-50 men and women. They were specialists, and they were regular laborers who were not specialists, who did just regular work. It was organized, but we also know from the tablets that there were many women managers. They managed large groups of workers. The workers were brought from all over the empire, probably for their specialties. So we see in the tablets there were Babylonians and Ionians and Assyrians and Persians and Egyptians, all working, probably specialized in different areas. We know from the tablets that female workers were paid maternity leave.
The Achaemenid kings did not exercise their power to subdue their people as much as the surrounding empires. Also, previously and afterwards, kings around them would construct friezes and statues, which would glorify their victories, such as the Arc de Triomphe in France.
For the first time, the reliefs were showing unity and peace and friendship, and not terror, which previous empires used to use in order to subject other people. So in the Achaemenid art, you see inclusion, you see representation of nations, you see delegates being led by alternating Persians or Medians.
The architectural influence of the Achaemenids spread to India, Greece, and Arabia, but its culture was still greatly misunderstood.
Persian women had a unique status that other ancient women did not have. Persian women had freedom to own their own properties. They could manage it on their own. They could participate in public affairs. They could manage a workforce. So these were things that Greeks did not allow women in their own societies to do.
Women's rights were alien to many other ancient cultures and still non-existent in some today. Here in the United States, we only began to give women equal rights in 1964. All of these were laws in the Persian Empire 2,500 years ago. Other nations did not look at the Persians with a friendly eye. When Cyrus was just beginning to gain control of the Middle East, the Median king Astyages despised him, although Cyrus was his own grandson. In the end, Cyrus overthrew him and conquered his people, but another, smaller nation, the Greeks, looked at the Persians with growing hostility because of their increasing size and power. Under Artaxerxes I, the Greeks went so far as to send a fleet of 200 ships to aid a revolt in Egypt. However, even though the Egyptians had this help, the revolt failed. Although the Greeks outwardly opposed their neighboring empire, they copied many of their architectural achievements and designs. You can see much Achaemenid influence in Greek structures. The Acropolis is an excellent example of that. Its huge pillars and friezes are remarkably similar to Achaemenid structures. In January 330 BC, Alexander the Macedonian reached Persepolis. Alexander's troops had won countless numbers of battles, and the Persians living in the city were helpless against his victorious forces, although they knew of his approach. His troops murdered and enslaved all the citizens, and plundered every building, including the vast treasury. They carried off so many expensive materials that the historian Plutarch claimed Alexander used 20,000 mules and 5,000 camels to carry the treasure away. When Alexander's troops were drunken and feasting, they marched to the palace and set fire to it, ending the Achaemenid Empire with one final blow.
It is truly a tragedy that Alexander successfully defeated the Achaemenian Empire. The love of nature and gardens, the effective postal service for advancement of trade and communication, the abolishment of slavery, the just labor laws, and finally the equal rights for women. These triumphs of the Achaemenian Empire only returned many thousands of years later. Where might we be now if they had never been lost?